You know, I've spent over 3 decades talking to people who are searching for peace. Some of them were doctors, some were teachers, and some were just tired souls trying to make sense of this life. And one thing I've learned is this: almost every form of suffering comes from one simple illusion, the illusion of time. You see, we've been taught since childhood to divide life into 3 pieces: past, present, and future. But when you really sit quietly and observe your mind, you'll notice there's only one thing that ever actually happens this very moment. Everything else is a memory or an imagination. Think about it. The past isn't sitting somewhere behind you waiting to be revisited. It exists only as pictures, stories, echoes, playing inside your head right now. And the future, it's not waiting ahead. It's just thoughts, expectations, little movies you project forward, again, right now. So what we call time is mostly a psychological experience, not a real thing. I remember once speaking to a woman named Eleanor. She was 67, retired, a wonderful grandmother. And she told me something that broke my heart. She said, "I feel like my life went by too fast. I was always planning for later, for the perfect moment, and now I don't even remember what I was waiting for." That's what happens when we live in time instead of in life. We keep chasing something that never arrives because the future is always one step away. And the past, well, it keeps whispering in our ears, reminding us of what we think we've lost. But what if I told you that nothing is ever really lost? That the you who remembers the past and the you who imagines the future are both happening in this single eternal now. I want you to try something. Take a slow breath. Feel the air entering your chest, the rise and fall of your body. Now, for just a few seconds, let go of every thought about yesterday, every worry about tomorrow. Notice what remains when all of that fades. It's quiet, isn't it? That stillness you feel, that's not emptiness. That's you. That's awareness itself, untouched by time. You are not inside time. Time is inside you. When I was younger, I used to think time was my enemy, that it was chasing me, aging me, taking things away. But now, at 60, I see it differently. Time isn't a thief, it's a teacher. It doesn't take things away from you. It shows you what was never truly yours to begin with. Moments pass, yes, but the space in which those moments happen, that quiet awareness, has never aged a single day. It's the same presence that was there when you were a child, the same one that will be there in your final breath. That's the part of you that's real, eternal, unchanging. You know, science has a funny way of confirming ancient truths. Modern physics tells us that time is relative. It bends, it stretches, it's not absolute. But long before Einstein, the Buddha, already said, there is only this moment. And in my years of meditation, I've come to see this not as philosophy, but as a living experience. When your mind stops chasing the clock, when you stop arguing with what's already gone or hasn't yet arrived, something magical happens. You actually meet life directly. You start hearing the sound of the world again, the hum of your refrigerator, the chirp of a bird outside your window. You taste your morning coffee as if it's the first sip you've ever had. And sometimes, you even feel tears come to your eyes because for the first time in years, you're actually here, alive, present, free. Many people tell me I wish I could go back and relive my life. And I always smile and say, you can, right now. Because the only part of life that's ever real is the part you're living now. This moment isn't just a point between the past and the future. It's the whole canvas on which your entire life is painted. The truth is, time doesn't flow through you. You flow through time, like a river moving through the same open sky. And that sky has never moved, never changed, never aged. That sky is your true self. So if you're watching this, I invite you to pause just for a minute and look around you. Feel your hands resting on your lap. Listen to the faint sounds around you. And realize that everything you've ever loved, every joy and sorrow, every heartbeat has happened here, in this same timeless now. Maybe the secret of peace isn't in doing more or knowing more. Maybe maybe it's in remembering what's always been here. Because when the mind finally stops running toward tomorrow or clinging to yesterday, you begin to see what the awakened have always seen, that this moment right here, right now, is not just part of life. It is life itself. If this reflection touched you, take a deep breath and stay with me on this journey of awakening. Subscribe to Buddha Essence Wisdom, and let's keep remembering what truly matters. The older I get, the more I realize how little I'm actually in control of anything. For years, I thought I was the one steering my life, making choices, building plans, holding everything together. But somewhere along the way, I began to notice something strange. My heart kept beating even when I forgot about it. My lungs kept breathing even while I was asleep. My body healed itself, cells dividing blood, flowing, billions of little miracles happening every second, all without my permission. And it hit me. I'm not the one doing life. Life is doing me. Look at nature. It doesn't try to be intelligent. A tree doesn't take classes on how to grow leaves. The ocean doesn't attend a seminar on how to form waves. A newborn baby doesn't have to remember to digest food or to breathe. Everything is happening perfectly by itself. There is a kind of cosmic intelligence running the whole show. And you, my friend, are not separate from it. You are it. I remember once talking to an old farmer in Arizona. He said to me, "Son, you can water the field and pull the weeds, but you can't make a single seed sprout. The earth decides that, not you." And I smiled, because in that simple sentence, there was more wisdom than in all the philosophy books I'd read in college. You can make plans, yes. You can put in effort, but the final outcome always belongs to something larger than you. The same force that spins galaxies is the one turning your breath right now. You are not separate from that force. You're a part of its rhythm. Science in its own language tells us something similar. Your body isn't just you. It's a community of trillions of cells, each one living, communicating, transforming, dying, and being reborn. You didn't design that system. You don't even know how it really works. And yet somehow, it works perfectly. Think about it. You don't decide to grow your hair or digest breakfast or fight a virus. It happens through you. Maybe that's the point. Maybe awakening isn't about taking control of life, but about trusting the intelligence that's already moving through you. I once had a student who told me I can't stop overthinking. I want to control my thoughts. I said, try controlling your heartbeat first. Try stopping it for a minute. Of course he laughed, and then he realized what I was saying. The same intelligence that beats your heart is the one creating your thoughts. You don't choose them. They arise just like waves on the ocean. And when you see this clearly, you stop judging yourself so harshly. You stop trying to be the ocean and start being the wave you already are. When you understand this, something shifts deep inside. The pressure to figure it all out begins to dissolve. You start to trust life again, not blindly but intimately. You see that the universe is not chaotic. It's alive, organized in ways we can't always understand. It knows what it's doing even when you don't. And perhaps what we call faith is simply the art of remembering that truth. Take a moment right now. Feel your heartbeat. You didn't make it happen, did you? It's been there since before you could even think. That rhythm, that pulsing, is the sound of the universe itself. It's the same rhythm that moves the tides, that spins the planets, that turns night into day. And it's whispering to you, you are not separate from me. You never were. You see, the ego loves to believe it's in charge. It wants to control, predict, and fix everything. But life isn't a problem to be solved. It's a mystery to be lived. The river doesn't struggle to flow. The flower doesn't force itself to bloom. And maybe, just maybe, you don't have to force yourself either. At 60, I've learned this much. Peace doesn't come from having control. It comes from realizing that you were never meant to control. You were meant to surrender, not in defeat, but in trust. The same life that grew trees and galaxies is growing you right now. So breathe, let it move through you, because the more you let go of the need to drive, the more you'll see the road was carrying you all along. Dunglai Nyinva Ongking Nyezo. The universe is intelligent, my friend. It's not something outside you. It's what you're made of. And when you finally finally stop fighting it, you'll realize you've been home all along. If this message resonates with you, take a deep breath and stay connected with our community of wisdom. Subscribe to Buddha Essence Wisdom, where we explore not the noise of life, but the silence behind it. There's something profoundly simple about awakening. It's not about seeing angels or entering some mystical realm. It's about seeing what's already here, without the fog of your own mind. We think awakening means discovering something new, but in truth, it's about rediscovering what's always been. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly looked at a tree? Not as a tree, not as a word or a category or a name, but as this living, breathing miracle standing right in front of you. Most of us don't really look at things. We look at our ideas about them. We see through a layer of language and memory. Oh, that's a tree. I know trees, maple oak shade lumber, and in that moment, we've stopped seeing it. We're no longer in direct contact with life. We're thinking about life. It's like mistaking the menu for the meal or the map for the territory. You can read the word honey 1,000 times, but until you taste it, you don't really know what sweet is. When the mind quiets down, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see the world directly, without commentary, without judgment. The colors become richer. The air feels more alive, even the smallest things. A drop of rain, the hum of the refrigerator, the warmth of sunlight on your hand. They all begin to shine with a quiet kind of magic. Not because anything new appeared, but because you finally stopped adding noise. I remember once sitting by a lake in Oregon. It was a quiet morning. Mist rising from the water, the world still half asleep. And for a few moments, my mind simply stopped. No labels, no thoughts, no story. Just this. And in that stillness, I didn't see a lake. I saw something infinitely alive, a shimmering field of light and motion reflecting the sky. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking at nature. I was part of it. That's what direct seeing is, not an escape from the world, but a deeper intimacy with it. Children know this naturally. Watch a child stare at a butterfly or splash in a puddle. They don't name it, analyze it, or judge it. They just see. They're fully absorbed in the miracle of what's in front of them. But as we grow older, we trade that wonder for concepts. We learn to live in our heads instead of our senses. And the tragedy is, we stop meeting life as it is. We meet it through what we think it is, through opinions, memories, categories, and fears. We see the past instead of the present. As a philosopher, I've met people who could explain everything, but rarely could they simply look at a flower and see it, because the more we know, the less we often notice. We think knowing the name of a thing means we understand it, but understanding comes from contact, not from concept. When you touch life directly, when you allow yourself to just see, without the constant chatter of the mind, you experience something that words can't describe. In Zen, they call it suchness, the isness of things, life before you put it into a box, reality before you name it. Let me give you an example. Next time you drink your morning coffee, try doing it without saying a single word in your head. Don't think coffee, don't think morning, don't think I like this. Just feel the warmth, taste the bitterness, notice the aroma. In that simple act of awareness, you're no longer a person drinking coffee. You are the experience of coffee itself. That is meditation. That is awakening. You see, life isn't happening to you. It's happening through you and as you. And when you see without concepts, you begin to notice that the separation between you and what you see was never really there. There's just this one great unfolding. You, the world, the sky, the tree, the sound, all of it, one dance, one happening. So maybe awakening isn't some distant goal. Maybe it's as simple as looking again, without naming, without expecting, without rushing to understand. Try it. Look at your hands. Look at the texture, the lines, the movement. You've had these hands for decades, but when was the last time you really saw them? That's where the miracle lives. Not in heaven, not in secret temples, but right here in what you've been overlooking your whole life. When you start to see this way, even ordinary moments, washing dishes, hearing a bird, or watching sunlight flicker through leaves, become sacred. Because in those moments you are no longer separate, you are life meeting itself. And that, my friend, is what it means to awaken. If this message resonated with your heart, take a deep breath and remind yourself to simply look, not through your thoughts, but through your presence. Subscribe to Buddha Essence Wisdom, and let's keep remembering how to see life, not just think about it. You know, most people don't even realize they're dreaming, not when they sleep, but when they're awake. They walk, talk, drive, work, even love, all while lost in a trance of the mind. A constant stream of thoughts, fears, memories, plans, and judgments, spinning endlessly like a movie that never stops playing. And the strangest thing is, they think that movie is life, but it isn't. Let me tell you something from my own experience. In my younger years, I used to wake up every morning with this storm in my head. What needs to be done today? What if I fail? What will people think? And every thought felt urgent. Every plan, every worry seemed so important. But looking back now, I see it clearly. I wasn't living. I was thinking about living. The mind had built a cage, and I, like so many others, had mistaken the cage for freedom. You see, the human mind is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. It was designed to help us survive, to calculate, to remember, to plan. But somewhere along the way, we began to worship it. We started believing that the voice in our head, that endless narrator, is who we are. I like this. I hate that. I'm scared of this. I hope for that. That little voice never stops talking, and we've grown so used to its noise that silence feels uncomfortable. But here's the truth. You are not that voice. I want you to try something for a moment. The next time you have a thought, maybe I'm tired or I shouldn't have said that, pause and simply notice it. Watch it like you'd watch a cloud drift across the sky, and then ask yourself, if I can notice my thought, then who is the one noticing? That's the beginning of waking up. That's when the dream begins to break. When people say they want peace of mind, what they really mean is, I want to stop believing everything my mind tells me. Because the mind will never stop talking. It's what it does. But when you realize you're the awareness behind it, the noise loses its power. Thoughts still come and go, but they no longer define you. You start hearing the world again, feeling life again, breathing again. I remember a man who once told me, I can't stop worrying. It's like my mind is always on. I asked him, when you go outside, do you ever really see the sky? He said, of course. And I said, no, I mean really see it, without naming it, without thinking anything about it. Just look. He tried it. And for the first time in years, he stood there, silent breath slowing, eyes wide open. And he whispered, it feels alive. That's what happens when the trance breaks. You stop living in your head and you start living in the world again. The mind is like a screen projecting the same film over and over. Regrets from the past, fears of the future. It hypnotizes you into believing that the story is real. But awakening is like walking out of the theater. You still see the screen, but now you know it's only light and shadow. And suddenly the world opens up again. Colors deepen, silence feels full. Even the smallest breath feels sacred. For decades, I've worked with people who've spent their entire lives running, not from the world, but from their own minds. And when they finally stop, when they finally dare to sit in stillness, something miraculous happens. They begin to remember who they were before the noise, before the guilt, the self-judgment, the endless comparison. They begin to taste what it means to just be. You don't need to go to a monastery to experience this. You don't need to shave your head or give away your possessions. You just need to notice. Notice when your thoughts pull you into a storm. Notice when you lose touch with your breath, your body, your senses. And when you do, just come back. Back to this moment. Back to what's real. Because every time you come back, you're breaking the trance a little more. And one day you'll wake up completely. Not in some faraway paradise, but here. In the only place life ever truly happens. And when that happens, you'll smile at your mind, not because it's gone quiet forever, but because it no longer fools you. You'll listen to its stories, its worries, its chatter, and simply say, "Thank you, but I'm awake now." If this message resonated with you, pause for a few seconds before leaving. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath and remember, you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which they appear. Subscribe to Buddha Essence Wisdom, and let's keep walking together out of the dream and into the clarity of now. You know, life is a strange kind of dance. Every step forward is followed by a step back. Every inhale by an exhale. Every sunrise by a sunset. And yet most people spend their whole lives trying to have one without the other. They want light without darkness, joy without sorrow, gain without loss. But life doesn't work that way. It never did. I used to believe happiness meant getting rid of everything painful, all the sadness, all the fear, all the grief. But as the years went by, I began to see a deeper truth. You can't have one side of the coin without the other. Joy and sorrow, peace and chaos, birth and death. They aren't enemies. They are partners in the same dance. You can't have the crest of a wave without the trough. You can't know what warmth is without the memory of cold. You can't truly love without knowing what it means to lose. I once sat with a man who had just lost his wife of 40 years. He said to me, "I can't stop crying. I feel so weak." And I told him, "You cry because you love deeply. The pain you feel now is the echo of that love. It's not a weakness. It's the other half of your strength." He looked at me for a long moment, then smiled through his tears. That was the first time he'd smiled in weeks, because he finally understood. His sorrow wasn't separate from his love. It was proof of it. Everything in existence depends on its opposite. Without silence, there would be no music. Without stillness, no movement. Without death, life could not renew itself. The universe is not a battle between good and evil. It's a harmony between opposites. A tension that creates balance like the strings of a guitar. Too loose and there's no sound. Too tight and it breaks, but when it's tuned just right, there's music. I sometimes think of the human heart the same way. It expands with joy, contracts with pain, and that rhythm is what keeps it alive. We call it beating, but it's really life itself breathing through you. So don't be afraid of the opposites within you. Don't try to erase your sadness, your anger, or your fear. Instead, learn to see how they complete the picture. You can't paint a sunset without both light and shadow, and you can't live a full life without both laughter and tears. When you really see this, not just as an idea, but as a living truth, something shifts. You stop resisting the dark because you realize it's what makes the light visible. You stop fighting the rain because you see it feeds the flowers you love. And then peace begins to appear, not as an absence of conflict, but as a deeper understanding of wholeness. Nature has known this all along. The day does not hate the night. The ocean doesn't reject the shore. Even the seasons, they don't fight for dominance. They take turns in perfect rhythm, each yielding to the next. Spring dies into summer, summer fades into autumn, and winter cold and silent gives birth to spring again. The same pattern lives in you, in your breath, in your emotions, in your years on this earth. When I was younger, I wanted certainty. Now I just want balance, because I've learned that life isn't meant to be one thing forever. It's meant to flow, to rise and fall, to open and close. That's the beauty of it. That's the intelligence of it. Let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed how some of your most painful moments later became your most transformative ones? How loss made you softer, how failure made you wiser, how endings made space for something new. That's the unity of opposites. It's life teaching through contrast. The universe doesn't punish, it balances. So the next time you're in the middle of a storm, don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Instead, ask, "What is this trying to complete?" Because even the darkness has its purpose. Even the breaking is part of the becoming. When you stop trying to choose sides, you begin to see the whole picture. And when you see the whole, you find peace. Not because life is perfect, but because you no longer demand that it be. You finally understand that every joy carries its shadow, and every sorrow hides a light waiting to be seen. If this message touched your heart, take a deep breath and remember, you are not here to avoid the opposites, but to embrace them. Subscribe to Buddha Essence Wisdom, where we explore not how to escape life, but how to live it completely. For most of my life, I believed I was somebody, a man with a story, a name, a past reputation, a collection of achievements, failures, hopes, and fears. And I defended that somebody like it was the most important thing in the world. But one day I asked myself a simple question. If I can watch my thoughts, if I can observe my feelings, then who is the one watching? The question changed everything. You see, what we call the ego, this sense of being a separate individual self, isn't who you truly are. It's a character, a role being played by something much larger, awareness itself. The ego says, this is my life, but the truth is, life is living through you. Think about it this way. When you were a child, you had a completely different sense of self. Then you became a teenager, new opinions, new insecurities, new identity. Later an adult, maybe a parent, a worker, a dreamer, a survivor. And yet throughout all those changes, there was something that never changed, a quiet presence behind it all. The same awareness that saw your childhood home, that listened to your first heartbreak, that feels the sound of my voice right now. That awareness, that's you. Not the story, not the mask, the awareness behind the story. The ego, on the other hand, is a storyteller. It loves drama. It feeds on comparison, control, and fear. It constantly says, I'm not enough. I need to prove myself. I must be right. I must be seen. And it's exhausting, isn't it? Because the ego is never satisfied. Even when it wins, it's afraid of losing. Even when it's loved, it's afraid of being forgotten. I once spoke to a man in his 70s, a former CEO, very successful, respected, powerful. But when he retired, he fell into a deep depression. He said, I feel like I'm no one now. And I said to him, maybe that's not the end of your story. Maybe that's the beginning of your truth. For the first time, he sat in silence. He looked down at his hands and whispered, then who am I? That's the most beautiful question a human being can ask. Because the moment you stop assuming you already know who you are, the door to awakening begins to open. When you start watching your thoughts, really watching, you'll notice something interesting. They come and go. They rise and fall like clouds in the sky. So if your thoughts are constantly changing, how could you be them? You're not the clouds. You're the sky that holds them. You can be aware of anger, so you're not anger. You can be aware of fear, so you're not fear. You can be aware of pride, so you're not pride. You are the awareness in which all of it appears. The ego hates this truth because it means it's not in control. It's terrified of disappearing. That's why it keeps talking, arguing, worrying, just to remind itself it exists. But once you see through it, you don't have to destroy it. You just stop believing its every word. You stop being hypnotized by the voice in your head. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been so deeply absorbed in music or a sunset or the face of someone you love that for a brief moment, you disappeared? No thoughts, no me, no. You're just pure presence. That's not a loss of self. That's the rediscovery of your true self. That's the you that was here before the story began. And once you've touched that even for a second, you'll never completely forget it. You see, awakening isn't about killing the ego. It's about seeing through it. You still play your role, the teacher, the parent, the friend, the dreamer. But now you know it's a role. You can laugh at yourself. You can forgive faster. You can listen without needing to be right, because you no longer take the mask so seriously. When you know who you truly are, awareness itself, life becomes lighter. You can still feel pain, but it doesn't define you. You can still experience joy, but you don't cling to it. You flow through everything with a quiet grace, because you're not the actor. You're the stage on which it all unfolds. At 60, I've come to see that the ego is just part of the game, a beautiful illusion that allows life to experience itself as me and you. But underneath it all, there's only one player, the consciousness that dreams it all. And maybe that's what awakening really is. not a new identity, but the end of pretending to be one. If this message touched your heart, take a quiet moment after this video. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply and ask yourself, who am I before the next thought arises? Subscribe to Buddha Essence Wisdom, where we journey beyond the noise back to the silence that has always been you. You know, once you've seen that you are not the voice in your head, something beautiful begins to happen. You start to live, not as a character in the story, but as the space in which the story unfolds. That's what it means to live as awareness. It doesn't mean you stop thinking or feeling or dreaming. It doesn't mean you sit in silence all day detached from the world. No, it means you live fully, but from a deeper center, from a place that no longer needs to control everything. You become like the sky, allowing the clouds to pass the rain to fall, the sun to shine, without ever forgetting that you are the sky. When you live as awareness, life becomes strangely effortless. Not because it's easy, but because you stop fighting what is. You move with the current instead of against it. You respond instead of react. You listen before you speak. There's a quiet intelligence that begins to guide you, not from your head, but from a deeper knowing, like a soft voice that doesn't speak in words, yet somehow always knows the way. I remember a woman I once counseled, a widow in her late 60s. She told me, I don't know how to live alone. I feel like half of me is missing. I said, maybe what's missing isn't your husband, but the space you used to meet life from, the awareness that watched both of you grow, laugh, and love. She looked confused at first, but over time, she began to understand that even though her roles had changed, the awareness watching it all had never left her. That part of her was whole. Always had been. When you live as awareness, you no longer chase happiness. You don't depend on circumstances to be at peace, because peace isn't something you find, it's something you remember. Even in sadness, you can sense a quiet stillness underneath. Even in chaos, you can feel something within you that remains untouched. That still point, that silent witness, that's who you really are. Most people live like waves rising and falling with every event, every opinion, every success and failure. But the awakened one knows you're not the wave. You're the ocean that allows all the waves to exist. You can still have emotions, you can still love deeply, you can still lose, cry, laugh, and dream, but you no longer drown in any of it. You float, you flow, you let life dance through you. And here's the paradox: when you stop clinging, life gives you more. When you stop needing to be someone, you become fully available for everything. You love more freely because you're not protecting an image. You forgive more easily because you understand that no one really knows what they're doing. We're all just consciousness trying to wake up. When you live as awareness, you stop measuring your life by years or achievements. You start measuring it by moments of presence. The way sunlight falls through the window, the sound of rain on the roof, the smile of a stranger, the breath that reminds you, I'm still here. That's what matters now. Not how long you live, but how awake you are while living. You know, sometimes people ask me, how do I stay in awareness all the time? And I tell them gently, you don't have to. Awareness never leaves. It's you who leaves. When you follow the thoughts, the worries, the roles, awareness doesn't come and go. You do. And every time you return to this simple now, you remember, it's been here quietly waiting all along. At 60, I've learned that living as awareness doesn't make life smaller. It makes it vast. You can hold joy and pain in the same breath and still whisper, this too is life. And in that whisper, there's freedom. A soft kind of freedom, not loud or dramatic, but gentle, steady, like the pulse of the universe itself. So tonight, when you sit quietly, maybe in your living room, maybe by a window, just breathe. Notice the world moving around you. Notice the thoughts passing through. And remember, you are not what's moving. You are what sees it move. You are the silence that holds every sound, the stillness that holds every change, the awareness that life is living through. And that, my friend, is what it truly means to live awake. If this touched your heart, Pause for a moment before you scroll away. Take one breath in silence. That's all it takes to return home. Subscribe to Buddha Essence Wisdom, where we remember again and again that awareness is not something to reach. It's what we've always been. You know, if there's one thing life keeps trying to teach us, over and over again, it's that the only real moment we ever have is this one. But most people never truly live here. They live in yesterday, replaying old wounds, chasing old glories, or they live in tomorrow, building castles of what-ifs, waiting for the perfect someday. And yet, that someday never comes, because when it does, it's no longer someday. It's today. It's now. I remember talking to a man once. He was in his early 70s. He said, "If I could just go back and do it all again, I'd live slower." He smiled sadly and added, "I spent my whole life hurrying toward a future that never arrived, and I could see it in his eyes, the realization that time had never really been the enemy. It was the chasing that had stolen his life away." The truth is, the mind doesn't know how to rest in the present. It keeps jumping between memories and expectations, like a restless bird that never lands. But awareness never moves. It's always here, right where you are. When you become aware of this, even for a moment, you'll start to feel something extraordinary. The peace that was never gone, the stillness that was always here, waiting for you to notice. Try this right now. Just stop whatever else you're doing. Take a deep breath in and let it out slowly. Listen. The sound around you, the hum of the air, the beating of your heart. Nothing is missing in this moment. Absolutely nothing. You don't have to fix it, label it, or understand it. You just have to be here without rushing to the next thing. That's where life actually happens. We've been conditioned to believe that peace lies somewhere in the future, after we retire, after the kids grow up, after the next goal, after we finally become enough. But have you noticed every time we reach that, after the mind quietly moves the finish line again, it says, "Not yet, just one more thing." And we spend our lives chasing a horizon we can never touch. But when you pause, truly pause, you realize something beautiful. You were already there. You just weren't present enough to see it. The present moment doesn't demand anything from you. It doesn't need you to be perfect. It doesn't even need you to be peaceful. It simply invites you to be here, to feel, to breathe, to notice this heartbeat, this breath, this tiny sacred sliver of eternity. I often tell my students, this moment is not just a small part of your life, it is your life. Everything else, the past, the future, are just thoughts happening now. The only place love can be felt, the only place joy can exist, the only place healing can happen is here. Not tomorrow, not next year, here. There's a reason why when you're fully present, even ordinary things feel extraordinary. The smell of rain, the warmth of sunlight on your hands, the taste of your morning tea. When the mind quiets down, life doesn't become dull. It becomes luminous. The ordinary becomes sacred because you finally stop looking through it and start looking at it. You know, I once asked a Zen monk, "What is enlightenment?" He smiled and said, "Eating when hungry, sleeping when tired." It took me 30 years to understand that, because what he meant was, when you're present, every act becomes complete. You don't eat and think. You don't walk and worry. You don't breathe and resist. You simply live. And that's enough. It always was. So tonight, when you sit quietly and the world seems to slow down, remember, you don't need to find the present moment. You can't lose it. It's what you've been standing in all along. The only question is, are you here to meet it? If this reflection touched your heart, pause for just one deep breath before you move on. Because in that breath, in that stillness, the whole universe is breathing with you. Subscribe to Buddha Essence Wisdom, where we don't chase tomorrow, we learn to come home to today. The deeper I've gone into this journey of awakening, the more I've realized that separation, this idea of me and you inside and outside, is the grandest illusion of all. We've spent our whole lives believing we're individuals, tiny islands floating in a vast, indifferent sea. But the truth is, we're not separate from that sea. We are the sea briefly taking the form of a wave. When you breathe in, the air becomes you. When you breathe out, you become the air. When you drink water, the clouds enter your body. When you eat an apple, the sunlight, transformed through the tree, becomes your cells. So where exactly do you end and the world begin? Where is the line? The truth is, there isn't one. It's imaginary. We draw it in our minds for convenience, but nature doesn't know that line. I remember once walking in a forest early in the morning. The air was cool, the earth damp beneath my feet. And suddenly it hit me. There was no me walking through the forest. There was only the forest and this movement called walking happening within it. The sound of the wind, the beating of my heart, the crunch of the leaves. They were all the same rhythm, just different notes of one song. That's what unity feels like. It's not a thought. It's a realization that everything is you and you are everything. But the ego doesn't like this idea. It wants to be special, separate, in control. It says, I'm here and the world is out there. But look closely. Is that really true? The light that touches your eyes right now was born in a star millions of years ago. The iron in your blood was forged in a supernova. You are literally made of stardust. So tell me, where does the universe end and you begin? When you start seeing this, even for a moment, your whole way of living changes. You can no longer harm another being without feeling it yourself. You can no longer take from the earth without gratitude. Because you see, there's no other. There's only this one great living body of existence. And when you finally realize that kindness stops being a moral duty, it becomes instinct, like breathing. I once had a student who told me I want to feel connected to God. And I said, then stop looking for him in the clouds and start looking in the mirror, in the soil, in the eyes of a stranger. God isn't somewhere else. The divine isn't hiding behind the stars. It's here, pulsing in every heartbeat, shining through every face, whispering in the silence between breaths. The truth is, you've never been alone. You've just been dreaming of being separate, like a wave that forgot it was the ocean. And when you wake up from that dream, you don't become more spiritual, you become more real. You begin to live in harmony, not as a moral ideal, but as a natural expression of what you are. A tree doesn't love the sunlight. It is the sunlight in another form. A river doesn't worship the ocean. It is the ocean flowing home. And when you feel this unity deeply, life becomes profoundly simple. The line between giving and receiving disappears. Helping another becomes helping yourself. And every breath feels like a prayer because it's shared by everything that breathes. That's the essence of awakening. Not escaping the world, but realizing you are the world. So next time you stand beneath the open sky, take a breath and feel the air move through you. That's the universe breathing itself. That's life, recognizing life. And maybe, just maybe, you'll hear the quiet truth behind it all. You were never separate, you just forgot. If this reflection touched your heart, pause for a moment before leaving. Look around, not as you looking at the world, but as the world looking back at itself through your eyes. Subscribe to Buddha Essence Wisdom, where we remember that we were never lost, only dreaming of being apart. You know, there comes a point on every spiritual path when you realize that no matter how hard you try, you're not really the one steering the ship. You can plan, hope, resist, or pray. But in the end, life has its own rhythm, its own current, its own mysterious intelligence guiding everything. And the moment you stop fighting that current, you begin to float. That's what true surrender feels like. For most of my life, I thought surrender meant giving up. I thought it was weakness or laziness, or a lack of ambition. But I was wrong. Surrender isn't defeat, it's alignment. It's when the wave stops pretending to be separate and lets the ocean carry it home. There's an old saying that always makes me smile: man plans and God laughs. I used to think that was cynical, but now I see it as compassion. Because life isn't laughing at you. It's laughing with you, gently reminding you that control was never yours to begin with. You don't beat your own heart. You don't digest your food. You don't make the sun rise in the morning. Something infinitely wise is already doing all of that, and all it asks of you is to trust. I once worked with a woman who had lost everything: her marriage, her home, her health. She said to me, "I've tried everything. I can't fix my life." And I said softly, "Maybe you're not supposed to fix it. Maybe you're supposed to stop fighting it." She didn't understand at first, but a few months later she wrote to me, "I stopped struggling. I started breathing again. And somehow, life began to move on its own." That's the power of surrender. When you stop pushing, life pushes for you. When you stop running, life catches up and holds you. You see, the ego wants to do life, but awareness knows how to allow life. When you live from awareness, decisions still happen, actions still happen, but they arise naturally. Not from fear, but from clarity. You move when movement is needed, and you rest when rest is needed. Like a leaf carried by the stream, not lost, not drifting aimlessly, but guided perfectly by the water's flow. Surrender doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. It means you trust that what needs to unfold will. You still do your part. You show up, you speak truth, you give love, but you release the obsession with outcomes. Because the truth is, you never controlled them anyway. The farmer plants the seeds, but it's the earth, the rain, and the sun that make them grow. Surrender is knowing that your job is the planting, not the growing. I used to resist everything: aging, mistakes, uncertainty, loss. But now when life takes something from me, I whisper, "All right, let's see where this goes." And strangely enough, what used to feel like chaos now feels like choreography. Even the heartbreaks make sense, like notes in a larger song I couldn't hear before. When you live in surrender, you begin to sense that life is not happening to you. It's happening as you. And when something painful arises, you don't ask, "Why me?" You ask, "What is this teaching me?" Because you trust the intelligence behind it. You see that the same power that makes flowers bloom is also blooming you. Let me ask you this. Have you ever stood by a river and watched how it bends around rocks? How it never resists obstacles, how it finds its way no matter what? That's surrender. The river doesn't fight the stone, it embraces it, flows around it, and continues on its way. And that's how I try to live now. Not by forcing, but by flowing. At 60, I've learned that surrender is not the end of effort. It's the beginning of wisdom. It's not the death of will. It's the birth of trust. When you stop clinging, you finally have open hands, and life can fill them again. So tonight, before you go to sleep, take a deep breath. Whatever you're holding on to, the regret, the worry, the need to know, just let it go for a moment. Let life take the wheel. It's been driving all along anyway, and when you wake tomorrow, you might just feel a little lighter. Not because life has changed, but because you have. You stopped rowing and you started floating. If this message touched your heart, take a moment of stillness before moving on. Don't try to fix anything. Just breathe and let it be. Subscribe to Buddha Essence Wisdom, where we don't fight the current, we learn to flow with it. The more I surrender to life, the more I begin to see there's an intelligence far greater than anything the human mind could ever design. It's everywhere. It's in the way the seasons know when to change, the way a wound heals without your permission, the way stars are born, die, and are reborn again, all without anyone in charge, and yet nothing is ever truly out of order. For years, I used to think nature was something out there. A forest, a mountain, a sky I could visit on weekends. But now I see, nature is not out there. You are nature. You are part of the same rhythm that turns tides and opens flowers. Every heartbeat you've ever felt was not yours. It was the pulse of the universe itself echoing inside your chest. When you begin to see this intelligence, life stops feeling random. It begins to feel musical. You notice how everything moves together. The way clouds drift, the way birds turn as one, the way your breath matches the wind outside your window. It's all part of a vast choreography, the great dance of existence. And the most beautiful part, you don't have to lead. You just have to listen to the rhythm. I remember one morning in New Mexico. The desert was quiet, the kind of silence that hums beneath your skin. I was watching a small cactus flower bloom, slowly, silently, and it struck me. This tiny act of creation was happening in perfect timing. No rush, no hesitation, just the pure intelligence of being. And I thought, if life can grow a flower out of dry sand, surely it knows how to guide me too. You see, the human mind is obsessed with control, but nature doesn't control. It cooperates. The river doesn't plan its path, it finds it. The tree doesn't worry if it will have enough sunlight, it simply grows toward it. The bird doesn't think about the wind, it rides it. Everything in nature trusts the intelligence that moves through it. And maybe that's what it means to awaken. To remember that same intelligence is also moving through you. When you live this way, you stop forcing life to make sense. You stop asking, why is this happening? And start asking, what is this teaching me? You start to see beauty in the broken branches, grace in the storms, and purpose in every ending. Because you understand, nothing is wasted in the dance of existence, not even your pain. Have you ever watched how nature renews itself? A forest burns, and months later, green shoots emerge through the ashes. A tree falls, and its trunk feeds the soil for others to grow. Even decay becomes nourishment. Life doesn't cling to the past, it transforms it. And that's what this intelligence is, a constant movement of renewal, a wisdom that knows how to turn even endings into beginnings. At 60, I've lived long enough to see how things that once felt like tragedies later became blessings in disguise. How loss opened space for love, how failure became the seed of clarity. And I realize now, life has always known what it was doing. It was me who didn't trust the choreography. So maybe the point isn't to figure life out. Maybe it's to join the dance. To move when it moves, to rest when it rests, to let go when it lets go. And as you do, you begin to feel a harmony you can't explain. A peace that doesn't come from controlling anything, but from being in sync with everything. You see, the universe isn't chaotic, it's creative. It's not a machine, it's a song. And every one of us is a note in that song. When you stop trying to conduct the music, you realize you were never separate from it. You were part of the melody all along. So take a breath, listen. That quiet hum beneath everything, that's life dancing through you. If this message resonates with your heart, take a walk outside today. Look at the sky, the trees, the ground beneath your feet. And remember, the same intelligence that moves them is moving you. Subscribe to Buddha Essence Wisdom, where we don't explain the dance of life, we learn to move with it. You know, there's something about growing older that brings a different kind of clarity. When you've watched enough seasons turn, when you've said enough goodbyes, you begin to see that time and death are not enemies to fear. They are simply parts of the same great rhythm we call life. When I was younger, I used to chase time. I thought I could outrun it, outsmart it, even conquer it. But time always wins, not because it's cruel, but because it's honest. It keeps reminding us that nothing here lasts forever. And maybe that's the point. Because without endings, we'd never see the beauty of beginnings. Without change, we'd never learn to love what's here now. You see, death isn't the opposite of life. It's the opposite of birth. But life itself has no opposite. Life is the space in which both birth and death appear, just as waves rise and fall within the same ocean. The wave may disappear from the surface, but the ocean never dies. And you, the awareness behind the body, behind the story, you are that ocean. I once sat beside a man who was dying. He was calm, peaceful even. He looked at me and said, "I'm not afraid. I've seen enough sunsets to know this one will be beautiful too." And he smiled. Not with his mouth, but with his whole being. In that moment, I understood something I'd only read in books, that dying is not the end of life. It's life continuing in another form. The same energy that makes your heart beat will one day turn into wind, into trees, into the laughter of someone you'll never meet. Nothing is lost, only transformed. Our culture teaches us to fear death because it teaches us to cling to form. But awakening shows you that what you truly are has never been born, and therefore it can never die. You are not the body that ages. You are not the story that changes. You are the timeless awareness in which this entire play unfolds. Time. Time is a strange thing. We measure it in years and clocks and milestones, but the awakened see it differently. To them, time is movement, but eternity is stillness, and both exist right here. This moment, the one you're in right now, is eternity appearing as now. It's the meeting point of the infinite and the temporary. That's why the present moment feels so sacred, because it's the only doorway to the timeless. When you truly live in awareness, you stop trying to hold on to anything, because you realize there's nothing to hold. Everything that comes will go. Everything that goes will return in another form. Even your breath teaches you this. You inhale, you exhale, and if you stop resisting the rhythm, you realize life is not in the holding, it's in the flowing. I often think of the way autumn leaves fall. They don't cling to the branch in fear of winter. They let go, trusting that spring will come again. That's not resignation, that's wisdom. Because in letting go, they return to the soil that gives birth to new life. And maybe that's what death really is. Not an ending, but a return. At 60, I no longer see death as a thief. I see it as a teacher, a quiet friend reminding me to live deeply, to love fully, to appreciate this fragile, fleeting beauty of being human. And in that understanding, even time feels softer. It's no longer something I race against. It's something I dance with. So if you're afraid of endings, I want you to remember this. You've already died 1,000 times. Every breath out is a little death, and every breath in is a new beginning. And yet through it all, something has remained unchanged. The awareness watching it happen. That's who you are. Not a visitor in time, but the eternal presence in which time itself arises. If this message touched your heart, take a quiet breath and place a hand over your chest. Feel that rhythm, not as your heartbeat, but as the pulse of the universe itself. Subscribe to Buddha Essence Wisdom, where we remember that life and death are not two. They are one infinite breath forever breathing itself through us. You know, after all the searching, all the questions, all the years spent trying to become, there comes a quiet moment when you realize you were never lost. You were always home. You just forgot to notice. For most of my life, I chased awakening like it was a destination. I read every book, meditated, prayed, doubted, tried again. But the more I looked for it, the further it seemed to go. Until one day I simply stopped. Stopped trying to be spiritual. Stopped trying to get there. And in that stillness, I discovered something simple. I had never left. I had always been this, just this moment, this breath, this quiet awareness looking through these eyes. That's home. The mind likes to make awakening sound grand, like a mountaintop you must climb to reach enlightenment. But the truth is far humbler and far more beautiful. It's in the small things, in the warmth of your morning tea, in the sound of laughter echoing in another room, in the way sunlight paints the floor. It's in the pause between words, in the stillness between breaths, and the gentle knowing that this is enough. Home isn't somewhere you find, it's what you return to when the searching ends. It's the silence beneath every sound, the peace beneath every storm, the love beneath every face. And when you come home, truly come home, you no longer need to escape the world. You see that the world was never outside of you. The trees, the stars, the people, the laughter, the tears. It's all part of one vast heart beating through infinite forms, including the one you call yourself. At 60, I've learned something precious. The journey isn't about becoming more. It's about becoming less noise, less fear, less pretending. Until all that's left is the quiet truth of who you've always been. Not a seeker, not a saint, just awareness, clear, open, alive. And in that simplicity, there's a beauty words can't touch. I sometimes imagine what it would be like if the whole world paused for just one breath. No striving, no comparing, no rushing, just being. Maybe we'd finally see each other not as strangers, but as reflections of the same light. Maybe we'd remember that love doesn't need a reason. It's what we're made of. Because when you're truly home, you can't help but love. It's not something you do, it's what you are. So if you've been searching, my friend, stop, sit, breathe, listen. Right now, in this moment, you're already where you've been trying to get to. You've always been enough. You've always been awake. You've always been home. The mind may wander, but awareness never leaves. It's here, quietly watching, patiently waiting, whispering in every breath. Welcome back. If this series has touched your heart, take a quiet moment before you leave. Don't think, don't seek, just breathe. You're home now. Subscribe to Buddha Essence Wisdom, where every video is not about becoming someone new, but remembering who you've always been.